If you own property, invest in property, or dream of stepping onto the property ladder, here's what you need to know for 2025. Now, you might be wondering, why should you even listen to me? Well, since 2013, I've built a nationwide UK home buying company, British Home Buyers, a nationwide estate agency, British Home Sellers, that's handled over 13,000 transactions worth more than £3.3 billion in property. So trust me when I say this, 2025 is shaping up to be a massive year for property. We're already seeing some surprising positive shifts. Real house prices, adjusted for inflation, are starting to rise again. Mortgage rates, both 2-year and 5-year fixed, are trending downwards. And even better, the Bank of England has cut interest rates and is expected to continue cutting rates multiple times through this year. But there's a big caveat to this. The Renters' Rights Bill is causing a storm among property investors. This legislation is sparking fear, especially since Labour has pushed heavily for tenant-friendly policies. Already 18% of properties on the market right now are ex-rental homes. Landlords are jumping ship in huge numbers. Meanwhile, Keir Starmer and the Labour Party remain unpopular across the UK. It certainly seems like the property market and the political landscape are on a collision course. However, Reform UK is gaining momentum. In fact, recent polls even place them ahead of Labour in key areas. And on my property channel, I've released a poll, vote if you've not already voted, that is right now showing 72% of viewers would vote for Nigel Farage if there was an election today. Now let's dive into the top 10 changes that could reshape UK property in 2025. Change 1, President Donald Trump's impact. Think about it for a moment. The US is our largest export market, representing £187 billion in exports. Yet when it comes to imports, the EU still dominates, accounting for 51% of our imports. UK imports £115 billion from the US, leaving a £72 billion trade deficit. And if Trump's policies shift to address trade imbalances, we could face increased tariffs on UK goods. This might sound distant, but Trump's unpredictability can't be ignored. Just look at his approach to Canada and Mexico. He's already signalling 25% tariffs on imports from those countries. If the UK ends up in a similar position, it could have ripple effects on our economy and housing market. Change 2, no fault evictions. The abolishment of Section 21 will be a game changer. Once this goes into effect, landlords will no longer be able to evict tenants without a valid reason. Here's a breakdown of the major updates. All tenancies will convert to rolling contracts. Fixed term tenancies will be a thing of the past. Next is you won't be able to serve notice to regain possession within the first 12 months of any tenancy. The next is landlords must provide 4 months notice, up from the current 2 months notice. And next, tenants must be in 3 months rent arrears, up from 2 months, before you can even begin eviction proceedings. The entire process will become lengthier and more costly, potentially leaving landlords vulnerable to long-term financial strain. However, it's important to state that the Renters' Rights Bill is not law yet. It's still working its way through the House of Lords. Changes can still be made, but it is expected to come into force this summer, at least partially, as Labour tries to fast-track the bill through Parliament. Change 3, rent increases. Under the Renters' Rights Bill, landlords can only increase rent once per year. The increase must reflect fair market value, and tenants will have the right to challenge it through a tribunal. While this adds protection for tenants, it also creates delays and added costs for landlords. Now, the details to this haven't been ironed out, but the main concern will be, why wouldn't a tenant challenge a rent increase? And then who ends up paying for the tribunal that assesses what fair market rent even is? My hope is that the cost will fall on the faulty party. So if a tenant challenges the increase and it's proved the increase was fair, then the cost of challenging it would fall on the tenant. Or vice versa, of course, if the landlord is challenged and it turns out the increase was unfair, then the landlord will pay. I think that's pretty fair, but what do you think? Change 4. Stamp duty threshold drop. Come April 2025, the zero rate threshold drops from £250,000 to £125,000, with the first time buyer threshold falling from £425,000 to £300,000. The reason this is important is whenever we see these sorts of upcoming changes, you get a flurry of activity as people race to buy and complete pre-April. So, in short, expect a Q1 buying rush followed by a potential slowdown in Q2. Past stamp duty changes have followed the same boom and bust pattern. Mega busy before a change, a slowdown after, to then stabilising again. Change 5. Bidding wars on rentals. This new rule will ban landlords from accepting offers above the rental price, which seems a bit odd to me. The idea is to prevent auction-style bidding wars. However, the likely workaround will be landlords will just list properties at higher prices from the outset and adjust down if necessary. This rule seems unlikely to have the intended effect. I personally don't quite understand what this solves. Perhaps you can help me figure that out in the comments below. If you have multiple tenants all offering the same amount, then what are you meant to do? Relist it at a higher price? Change 6. Holiday let tax overhaul. Big changes are coming to holiday lets. Here's the breakdown. The first, mortgage interest relief. Currently, mortgage interest is fully deductible from tax, but from April 2025, relief will be capped at the basic rate of 20%. Second thing is around capital allowances. Deductions for furniture and fittings will end. So only replacements to things like washing machines, for instance, and stuff like that can be deducted pre-tax. The third is around capital gains tax. Business asset disposal relief, which reduced capital gains tax to 10%, will no longer apply. And 4, pension contributions. So profits from holiday lets will no longer qualify as relevant earnings for tax-advantaged pension contributions. And 5, loss relief, which I think this is a good one. Owners will be allowed to offset holiday let losses against other property income, which just helps diversify your risk a bit. To me, these all seem pretty reasonable, but what do you think? Change 7, anti-discrimination rules. The Renters' Rights Bill also proposes banning discrimination against tenants based on benefits, children, or pets, or anything like that, which of course makes sense and aligns with principles of fairness. But in reality, though, landlords will still control which offers they accept from who, but won't be able to advertise exclusions. So you can't advertise no pets. I think this will matter more to the big corporate landlords with thousands of units they're renting. Because if it turns out from 1,000 rentals they've got, none are rented to those with pets, or none of those are rented to those on benefits and so on, then it's clear there's some sort of discrimination taking place there. And I imagine there'll be some sort of action taking place. But for smaller landlords, I'm not quite sure how easy it will be in practice to prove any sort of discrimination. In reality, if a landlord has the choice between 2 great tenants, one has a pet, a massive Great Dane, and the other doesn't, most landlords would probably choose the tenant without the pet. Change 8, EPC ratings by 2030. All buy-to-lets by 2030 must achieve an EPC rating of C or better, they're saying. Currently, 80% of rental properties are actually rated D or lower, and the average cost to upgrade a property to a C rating is around £9,260. So this is making compliance a significant financial challenge and burden for many landlords. And of course, a lot of landlords won't be bothered to make the upgrades and will just exit the market by selling. Although my view is doing the work will add value to the property in any case. So if you can, do it, or refinance the property to do the works, because the asset will be worth more and the rent will increase that will cover the cost of refinancing to do the work anyway. Change 9, the new landlord database. A proposed landlord database will allow tenants, and I guess anyone else, to search properties, revealing details about the landlord, the letting agent, and rental histories. While this might improve transparency, many aspects of the system remain pretty unclear at this stage. What I imagine will happen is it will follow the blueprint of the current land registry that we've got in operation today. Right now, you can type a postcode in, select an address, and download the title deed for £7. In the title deed, you can see the chain of ownership of the property, and it will include things like, any mortgages or charges against the property and leases against it and things like that. I imagine it's going to be similar with this lettings property database that they're thinking about building. I don't think this is a big issue. Change 10, Nigel Farage and Reform UK. It may seem far-fetched, but Nigel Farage and Reform UK are making waves in politics right now. It's undeniable. For instance, just take a look at his YouTube channel. It's getting over 2.5 million views a month right now, compared to the government's YouTube channel, 10 Downing Street, which is getting under 500,000 views a month. I mean, one of my other channels is getting almost 130,000 views. And you can see from this graph that there are a few days my property channel got more views than 10 Downing Street, which is just mad. And it emphasizes how the government page should be busier. So look, the point is Nigel Farage is getting over 5 times more views on YouTube right now than the UK government. And that same statistic is across all social media platforms. And it's honestly astonishing. And anyone who's overlooking this is mad, because that's how Donald Trump got re-elected. But the reason this matters to property investors is Farage has amassed a £3 million property portfolio, and Reform UK's leadership is deeply tied to property investment. So they're not likely to want to do anything that hurts their financial interests. For instance, Reform's chairman, Richard Tice, runs a property investment firm that manages assets worth £500 million. And of course, Nick Candy, the billionaire property developer, is Reform's treasurer, and he's pledging to raise more money for Reform UK than any other political party in UK history. Do we believe him? Well, they are chatting to Elon Musk. I'll see you in the next video up here.